How's it going, everybody? Statustats here, coming back at you with my Week 6 waiver wire pickups. This week was certainly a difficult one for fantasy managers, as it saw 7 games postponed due to COVID-19 concerns, with players around the league contracting the virus. We knew that this was going to be a problem coming into the season. It's going to continue being frustrating, and it's not something we're going to be able to predict on a week-to-week basis. So fantasy managers are just going to have to roll with the punches for now. It does, however, open up a few different avenues for fantasy managers to exploit. This becomes apparent with my first inclusion on this list, Joel Eriksson Ek. As you can see, Eriksson played no games this past week as he was placed in the league protocol back in the beginning of February. Before this, however, he was having a great start to the season, with 9 points in 11 games, including scoring 5 goals. His ownership had jumped well over 50%. However, after his lengthy absence, it has since dropped back down to 38%. He has recently cleared league protocol and should return as soon as Tuesday. Eriksson should once again be scooped up in leagues where he was dropped. This kind of behavior is something to keep in mind as situations change in the NHL and the teams have their games canceled, or certain valuable fantasy players are forced to quarantine and miss games. Now, obviously, most managers aren't dropping elite players that are forced to miss games, but it is something you can use as leverage when making trades, especially later in the season when you're trying to make deals with managers that are falling out of playoff contention. If you're doing well, or have already secured a spot in the playoffs, for instance, a good strategy could be to package 2 quality players together for 1 elite player that is missing time. As the playoffs grow closer, managers won't have the luxury of waiting for their star players to return, and thus could be persuaded to trade them in exchange for a player or a group of players that could help them win right now. Just something to consider for later on in the season. Next up, we have Cam Atkinson, who is starting to show his scoring touch from years past. He had a massive Week 5, scoring 7 points in 3 games. Atkinson was certainly disappointing last season, playing only 44 games while scoring just 26 points. The year prior to that, however, he scored a nice career high of 69 points and 41 goals. The departure of Panarin from Columbus might have hurt his production, but perhaps playing alongside another superstar in the recently acquired Patrik Laine can help Atkinson rebound this year. I'm not quite ready to proclaim that he's fully back, but I'm more than a little intrigued, and I would highly recommend picking him up if he's available in your league, to see if he can build off this recent surge. Sticking with the Blue Jackets, we have Jake Roslovic, who finds himself as the team's #1 center following the trade of Pierre-Luc Dubois. While Roslovic does have some upside on his own, being the 25th pick in the 2015 NHL draft, his entry on this list really comes down to opportunity and supporting cast. With the departure of Dubois, the Blue Jackets find themselves very thin at the center position. Luckily, they got Roslovic back in the trade, who now finds himself playing alongside the aforementioned Cam Atkinson and sharpshooter Patrik Laine. Roslovic never really got a chance to secure a top 6 role with the Jets, but he now finds himself as the main guy in Columbus, and with two deadly shooters on either side of him, he should have no problem putting up career best stats the rest of the way. Moving on to a goaltender, I decided Jake Ottinger offered decent upside on the waiver wire. Anton Khudobin hasn't looked nearly as impressive this year, with him having recently lost 4 straight games and having allowed over 4 goals with less than a .9 save percentage during this recent stretch. Ottinger has thus far outperformed Khudobin on the year, posting a .91 save percentage and 2.31 goals against average. While I don't think Ottinger will seize the starting job outright, he has the potential to steal starts from Khudobin down the stretch, and playing for a strong defensive team like the Stars, that should help him pad his stats. Moving on to my buy low candidates for this week, I've got Alex Pietrangelo for the Vegas Golden Knights. Another player recently returning from the NHL's COVID-19 list, Pietrangelo should immediately reclaim his role as the team's #1 defenseman and secure a spot on the top power play unit. While Pietrangelo is a known fantasy commodity, his extended absence and slow start to the season, with him having just 4 points in 10 games so far, this could afford you an opportunity to buy low on the blue liner. Add in his propensity to block shots, and it wouldn't be a bad idea to inquire to your league's manager about his availability. All right, I know, another Blue Jacket on this list. But hear me out, because I think there's some real potential here. Make no mistake, if you want to acquire Laine, it's not going to come cheap. However, any opportunity to acquire a premier goal scorer is worth it, in my opinion. In just his 4th game with his new team, Laine was benched after a blown defensive assignment against the Hurricanes. While this kind of punishment certainly raises questions about Laine's long-term future with the team, it doesn't affect his immediate fantasy outlook. Laine was brought in to score goals for a team that has thus far struggled offensively this season. Despite his disruptive personality, Laine's presence on the ice enhances the value of all of his line mates, while he himself is a threat to score on any given night. Perhaps his recent benching will leave some managers fearful of further discipline or a possible falling out of favor similar to his situation in Winnipeg. Either way, I'd do my due diligence and throw together a decent offer for Laine to see if I could get any worried managers to bite. As for players I'm looking to move on from, we come back to Anton Khudobin. I've already talked about him a little when discussing Ottinger, so I won't spend too much time on this entry. Simply put, I wasn't very high on Khudobin coming into this season. He had the potential to be the undisputed #1 goalie for the Stars, with Ben Bishop out until at least March. However, he had never really been that in the past, and at 35 years old, I didn't suddenly think he would become a workhorse. While he has been an okay part-time goaltender, his numbers from last year certainly look like an outlier, and the product of a defensively minded Stars team. As mentioned, Ottinger has outplayed the veteran netminder as of late, and the Stars have one of the hardest remaining schedules in the league. Throw in the fact that Ben Bishop will return at some point, and I'll be looking forward to offloading Khudobin to any manager that still believes in his performance from last year. Finally, we come to another interesting choice for a sell-high candidate. If I asked you, Who was the highest scoring defenseman in ESPN head-to-head points leagues? Who would you say? Victor Hedman? John Carlson, perhaps? Nope. It's actually Jeff Petrie, thanks to his strong category coverage and 15 points in 15 games this season. More recently, however, he has 2 points in his last 5 games, and Montreal's offense as a whole has been slowing down, with the team scoring 2 or fewer goals in their last 5 games. Petrie also supports a 15.8% shooting percentage, substantially higher than his career average of 6.9%. Now, let's get one thing straight here. I am not advocating that you go out and trade Petrie for any offer that's sent your way. He is still a valuable fantasy asset, contributing in shots on goal, blocks, and hits. Just don't expect him to maintain a point-per-game pace the rest of the way. Only trade him if you're getting a substantial offer or a top defenseman in return. And with that, we wrap up another week of the Fantasy Waiver Wire. If you guys enjoyed the video or found it useful, please consider liking the video and subscribing for more fantasy-related content. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.